Becky Holmes, famous author. And as I said, Amazon have told me my copy's due on February the 4th or 5th.
Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because apparently, even though it comes out on the 25th, and that's when they'll send it to you, until it's in their warehouses.
All right.
Yeah, so it's been really misleading. But Amazon, they do so many things which are so peculiar.
Probably.
But yeah, I would put money on you getting it before then.
It's on, so I'm going to get it. I know that. So Becky, this has been going on for quite a while.
Yes, you are the very first person that I spoke to about romance fraud.
I know, because you were a bit surprised at the contact, weren't you? You know, with the publishing company and things.
Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like a million years ago now, but yeah. So I'd been sort of messing around on Twitter for a little while, and got a bit of a following. And then started to look more into actually what goes on behind the scenes of some of these scams. And that's when I started to do a bit more research and obviously came across you. And it just kind of went from there, really. But I know when you and I spoke, and I was still at that point, I mean, we're going back 2.5 years. At that point, I was still so naive. And I remember,
your research,
you know,
your research really was concentrated after that, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I remember saying to you, well, of course, you know, I'm sort of messing around, and the more they talk to me, the more I'm wasting their time. And you said, you won't be the only person they're speaking to. And I thought, really? Yeah. And I mean, since then, I've learnt so much. And I've spoken to so many people, and I've been in and spoken to the police, and you know, I've done media about it, and obviously there's the book, but it's been fascinating. And I've been so privileged to speak to so many victims face to face, and it's been such a roller coaster of a journey, because it's been heartbreaking as well as fantastic. It's kind of,
you learn so much from it, and you get so much from it. I do. I get a lot of satisfaction from, like, just in the last hour, I've had an in-depth conversation with the daughter and her father. He was French, so she was translating for us, you know, but he's been involved in a scam. And it just was so good to get him out of it, and to get him to see what was happening, you know. Because he didn't know, you know, he thought this actress was madly in love with him. But he was a genuinely nice person. And one thing that you said, which I loved you saying, because everybody finds this out, it is not stupid old women who fall for scams. It can be anybody.
Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting that we say about that. One of the things that I'm desperately trying to get changed is this, you know how we all say fall for.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody from the police earlier, and I said it, and I went, oh God. And I had to sort of correct myself. It's this thing, it's this language that's drilled into us, you know, from when you're a little girl upwards. You know, and you're told that somebody falls for something. I think we need to be working on all these different things, changing the language so that it's not victim blaming, you know, looking at different ways to approach people. And
because really speaking, the actual scammer is the last person that anybody thinks of in this, even after the scam. And you know, as I've told people, and people from our group know, we don't ask people how much they've lost, but if they tell us, we make a note of it every year. Our total for the 2023, but just on my group, for about 10% of the people that come to us, was $21,200,000 to $21,020,000. Just to us, that was 21 million. But you know, there is a receiver of that money. It doesn't go into the ether. There is a receiver of that money. And the thing is that people tend to because the celebrity scams, they're just going through the roof now.
Well,
it is crazy.
Thanks to Elon Musk taking away the blue tick for a start.
Well, I mean, on Facebook, it's just ridiculous. It is just ridiculous how you can so easily make a fake account. And there's not, well, they've made it easier now because they've made a new type of account. But there is, you know, Keanu Reeves can stand up and say, I'm not on social media. But it's all right, isn't it? Because everybody can make a fake Keanu Reeves and contact people.
Yeah.
And nothing's done.
No, absolutely not. And it infuriates me that, you know, Facebook, when I was doing sort of all of this various research and looking at bits and pieces, and I typed Yahoo Boys into Facebook.
Yeah.
And the amount of groups where you can go on and you can learn to scam. I mean, I'm in all of those groups. I would make an amazing scammer now with all of the tips.
Yeah.
But I've reported all of these to Facebook and they're still there.
We used to have human contact at Facebook. Now we've got this wonderful thing called a bulk scam reporting form. So we have a form that goes into Meta's systems. Not many people have it, but we do. And a few others, but we do. It's not great. It'll take 40 to 50% of what we put into it. Now, for years and years and years, going back years, from way back when I used to talk to you, every day, what didn't go in the form, we would send a list and they would manually take them. The end of July, they told us they would no longer take fakes by email. So we have no way of getting fake accounts down that do not go in the list. And up until that point, we could get Yahoo Boy groups down. Yeah. And one that we got down, and now they won't do it, has now got 147,000 members.
Yeah. And, you know, I went into the Facebook terms and conditions and I was rooting through trying to find it must be against something. And I found the one, you know, no group must encourage fraudulent behaviour or something.
Fraudulent behaviour is not allowed on Facebook.
Well, apparently,
apparently
not.
No.
And, you know, the same on Twitter. I looked through and it said, you know, you mustn't have any fake accounts. We'll not stand for it.
No.
And I thought, wow, that makes me feel better. You know, that's that sorted then.
You go on Twitter and you go on any platform and put in Austin Scott Miller. He was a top general in the US Army, and he must have thousands, not hundreds, thousands of Austin Scott Miller. And that's awful. It's awful being him.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I know that you've spoken to Stephen Kelly a lot.
Yeah.
And I interviewed him for the book. And I actually spoke to him again quite recently. You know, and he's since married, and he said that he sits there on his sofa and he gets his wife will have something saying, oh, by the way, I'm speaking to your husband at the moment.
Yes.
And she sort of looks over and thinks, well, you're not actually.
Yeah, I mean, I speak to, on a regular basis, I speak to a guy called Cesar Camacho, and he was standing in front of his wife one day and we're talking. She got a text and she said, oh, do you know that you're engaged? And she's telling me that you're scamming and you're stealing money from women. And you know, it's awful for the families. It really is. It really is awful for them because they can do nothing. They can do nothing about being used because nobody helps them. I mean, you know, Zuckerberg and Muskie, baby, they don't help them.
No, I used to have quite a good opinion of Mark Zuckerberg. I used to think he was quite a nice chap. I thought, well, he stays out of the media, he gives a lot of money to charity, etc. But it's only sort of the last, I don't know, I guess since I've been doing this, that I've thought, oh, do you know, you've sort of lost some of it. It's got so big now that he's not actually able to see what's happening within this organisation, and there's it's great for keeping in touch with people, but there's so much harm comes from it as well.
Yeah, we always say it's great for family and friends. I mean, you know, my son, as you know, my youngest goes around all over the place, so it's great. I've got family in Thailand. It's great for that, but it's every day. You know, I get lots of hello beautiful and hello pretty. It's like, winds me up. But you know, there's nothing. You can't it isn't for strangers, it is for friends and family. But of course it's for advertising, Becky. It is.
Yep.
It is purely numbers for advertising. And people don't realise that they are the commodity. It's not there for them. They are the commodity of these. And don't get me going on TikTok. Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm not. I've resisted TikTok. But I have heard that scamming is rife on TikTok.
It's the worst one.
I've heard that.
It's worse than Meta and Twitter put together. Yeah.
What I don't understand, though, is I know it's all about advertising, but there is so much. We criticise social media companies so much. Why aren't they doing anything? Surely this would be, the first one who does it, whether it's Meta, whether it's X, whether it's TikTok, the first one who would stand up and do it and say, look, it would be amazing PR for them. I don't understand why somebody isn't saying we're gonna put a stop to this now.
Because I click on adverts sometimes, and I don't know why I do it. I keep getting Burberry, and I click and it'll give me a sweatshirt or a shawl or something, and I'll click and go, oh, 1,595. That's ridiculous. That's the only reason I click on it. So I keep getting Burberry back because they think I'm interested. But can you imagine if you're paying the Burberry rates? And yeah, Sea Whispers is somebody who's used in scams. She's with us a lot. If you're Burberry pay, and your adverts are going out to 20,000 Keanu Reeves or 20,000 orthopedic surgeons in Yemen. I feel a bit, miffed about that, really.
I mean, I've just seen somebody say, why can't they ask for photo IDs to stop? There's a lot of talk about the things should be based around, you have to have an ID, you have to be able to have that to set up an account. And I think it's worth investigating. The problem is that, I mean, better than anybody, Ruth, scammers are so good that they'll create an ID.
Yeah. I mean, we can't, but we keep getting pulled up by Instagram, and they will take posts down if I post fake ID, because you're not supposed to post anything that would identify a person. And I keep thinking, if you think I'm identifying somebody by posting the fake Texas driving license, that worries me.
Yeah.
Because you should know that it's wrong. But yeah, come on. So tell everybody about Keanu, because I love some of your Keanu's. And Liam Neeson, well,
Well, Liam Neeson, I'd be very, very happy if the real Liam Neeson sent me a message. Very happy. But I fear he's not on Twitter either. Yeah, so Keanu Reeves is the most fake celebrity, which is bizarre because he's not on any form of social media. And he famously isn't on social media. And in fact...
people he's not. Always.
Sorry.
He famously tells people he's not.
Exactly. And his publicist actually came out last year and made a statement and said, if you think that you're speaking to Keanu Reeves, it's not him. We're struggling with all of these fake accounts. The problem is, though, that these Keanos, they will say, well, my publicist doesn't know about the account. So I've done this.
Made all of the accounts because I want to talk to my fans.
Yeah. So, and this is something that I know celebrities are struggling with themselves. I saw something by, there's a celebrity, Chris something. I'm no good with celebrities, Ruth. I don't know who anybody is. But it's Chris someone. And he actually put out a big old rant.
Was that Chris Hunnam?
No, I would have. It's either Chris Hemsworth.
Oh yeah, he does that as well.
I can't remember who it is. One of them. But he put a big rant out and was basically threatened if he found anybody that was using his name. He threatened to go around there.
Yeah.
Because it must be awful for them. Because just as Stephen Kelly. He gets people ringing him or messaging him saying, you owe me money.
Yes. All the time.
Yeah.
We deal with a guy, a lovely guy in California, and he's got art galleries. He's gay as they come. He's quite happy. He's telling you he's gay. I once said he was very gay, and he said, "Well, you're either gay or you're not. You can't actually be very gay, but you know." And he's used a lot. Lovely, lovely man, James. And he picked up the phone one day, and this man said to him, "Stop talking to my wife." So James went into his usual spiel of, you know, "It's not me, it's the scammers." And he said, "I know it's you." He says, "You'll give her the $30,000 back." He said, "Don't forget, I know where you are and I can find you. I'll come and put a bullet in your head." And that really spooked James, as you would imagine it would. Because he is the owner of the art gallery. It's really easy to find, you know. Yeah. And, well, you know, my famous lady who sent £500,000 to Eric Clapton. And she was convinced it was him. I talked to her for hours, and she was lovely, lovely lady. You would not think, you would not put the scam with the lady at all. But she was absolutely convinced that she was helping him go on tour again after COVID, because his management wasn't going to give him the money to do it. And she paid for the tour. Spoiler alert, I have seen Eric Clapton in concert, and he was crap. It was awful. So, you know, but they get so pulled into it.
Yeah, and I wrote a piece. I know that you commented on my Facebook. I wrote a piece today, and it went into the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
And they really messed me around with the title, and I was furious. So for anybody that's watching, I wrote a piece about how people who become victim of romance fraud, they're kind rather than stupid. But of course, the Daily Mail gave it the headline, I don't know, women who fall in love with fraudsters, even though they've been taken to the cleaners. It was horrendous. But when I write an article like that, I get a lot of people messaging me on various platforms saying, "Well, I'd never do that. I'd never send money to anybody."
Exactly. And it as well.
I always say, well, then you are one of the people who is more likely to do something down the line, because you consider yourself above this.
And they don't accept what's going on, and they're not going to learn, because the scam victims, they say, are just silly women who want flattery, and they're not learning what it is. So to me, they're going to be really, you know, they get a good looking man who comes and he's really nice to them, they're going to fall. They do.
You know, that Daily Mail piece, I went on to the comments earlier, which you should never do, really.
No, you should never do.
Now, I'd written about two victims in particular that I interviewed for the book, and the people in the comments were tearing these two ladies apart. They're sad, they're desperate, they're this, they're that, they're stupid. And I felt mortified, because having been in the company of those two ladies, and one of them in particular is so articulate and bright and switched on, and exactly the opposite to the kind of person that these people were making her out to be. I was absolutely furious and I messaged her and said, "Look, you know, this piece is out, and I'm really sorry about the headline. That wasn't me. But I'm hoping more than anything that she doesn't read the comments, because that will mortify her. She's been so brave to tell me her story."
And as I said to you, I like it when they twisted your article. I like it when things show how big scamming is, because sometimes they'll focus, we get them all the time, you know, we're going to do a piece, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Can you, you know, do you have any victims who would come out and talk to us? And we always get them. And I like that, it's good, but they narrow it down too much. Like this victim, and it's like, well, romance fraud is out there and it happens every now and again. They don't accept. There will be thousands of women in the UK at the moment, hundreds of thousands of women in the US at the moment, and we get people from every country. I've got people in Nepal, I've got victims in Tibet, I've got victims in Myanmar. got a beautiful, wonderful woman in Macedonia who's suicidal because she's been to moneylenders for a man, and she really fears for her life. And you know, it's the judgment is instant. But you see, you're easy for me to talk to, because I was never a victim. They tried with me, like you. They approached me, but you know, the Queen and her corgis could turn up at my front door and she wouldn't get in. I never trust anybody. But people are very judgmental and nasty. My mum said to me, if you can't think of anything good to say, don't say anything.
I think the reason that I've been able to be empathetic is because, and you'll read this when you get the book, although I haven't been the victim of a romance fraud, I was the victim of a partner who told me a lot of lies, and I was paying his debts off, and I was paying this and I was paying that, and I was lending him money. Now, some of the lies, and again, I won't spoil it for you, but there's one in particular when you read the book. One of the lies he told me, I look back on it, and when I was writing it, I actually burst out laughing, because when I put it down on the screen, it's sort of, I read it back and I thought, oh, Becky, for God's sake, what were you thinking? But it just goes to show, I mean, I'm an educated person. I've got a first-class degree from London. I've got, you know, this, that, and the other. I'm an emotionally intelligent person. But I was in that relationship and I was invested. But the thing is, Ruth, and this is with a lot of people that I've spoken to as well, even though I was in that relationship and I was, you know, things were sort of on the outside, they were fine, I knew something was going on.
Yeah.
There was something in the back of my head. I thought, no, it's not right. It's not right. Yeah. And I kept pushing it to the back of my head.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't want to do was to in any way have to entertain the fact that the person I was with was a liar.
Yeah.
So it was much easier just to think, right, okay, I'm not dealing with that. Now, of course, in the meantime, I'm paying off more debts, and I'm buying this that he needs, and I'm sorting his car out, and I'm paying this off. You know, and I guess it's a form of fraud, but I can see so easily, so clearly why people stay in those situations, because you don't want to have to face what you know is inevitably happening.
And many think, well, if I come out of it now, I'm not going to get the money back. Annie Musso wants to know what the name of the book is. I will let you tell her.
It's called Keanu Reeves is Not in Love with You.
Devastating. Speaking of intelligence, my scammer is very smart and clever. Your scammer is very... I'm a little disappointed that you know it's a scammer, and it sounds like it is, not a was. And your scammer's very lucky, because they're not smart and clever. They are lucky. And you will realise that afterwards.
The ones that I think are particularly smart and clever are these, you know, the pig butchering scams.
Oh, it's awful, isn't it?
Technologically, they're so advanced.
Yes.
And that worries me greatly, because for somebody who, you know, say you run your own business or you work in finance and you feel that you're technologically savvy, you know, and you go on and you're used to making money and you're good at making the right decisions, you know, to then have your money taken away from you, then that's almost more shame, because you feel that money is something that you've always been able to control. So there are so many different variations of romance fraud, aren't there? And they all carry with them.
I have a guy, I mean, pig butchering, the biggest pig butchering loss that we've had was a guy from Spain who lost 2.2 million euro. So that was absolutely devastating. But I've got a guy on at the moment. He's Canadian Japanese, and they use the Chinese beautiful woman, and the exact same story. I mean, it really is the same story. And you know, he said to me yesterday, I know you said you've been very kind to me and you're very nice, he said, but I keep thinking of what I could have bought. I've always wanted a Tesla. Could have bought a Tesla. And it's sort of, we talk about it and he's okay. He will be okay. But it's the devastation because money's been given in good faith. And this is the worst thing. It hasn't been taken. Yes, sometimes they go on the bank account, but that's much later. It has been given in good faith.
Yeah. Well, as you'll know from the piece I wrote for the Mail today, one of the reasons people don't understand it is because in a regular crime, money is taken from you, whereas in this crime, you're seen to be giving it willingly. So people think, oh, well, if they gave it away. But, you're giving something away while you're the victim of coercive control. It's absolutely not willing.
You wouldn't do it if you understood everything that was happening.
Yeah.
Now we talk about coercive control, we talk about abusive relationships, and when it's a physical, personal, standing in front of somebody else's relationship, it is, oh, isn't that awful, poor girl. She and him, because God, we've got at the moment a glut of men who's victims, but you accept it when it's there and then, and you think, oh, they should get out of it. When it's online, it's somehow not coercive control.
Yeah. This is it. When it infuriates me when people say, well, of course, you've given money to somebody that you haven't met. If it's online, it's not a proper relationship. It doesn't matter what the outsider thinks. It does not matter. If you've met somebody online and you've been sharing whatever you've been sharing with your life, as far as you're concerned, it's a relationship. But you're right, because something's online, people don't give it the same gravitas.
No, not at all. And what people don't appreciate, shall I say, is that they're talking to a room full of people. So it's not one-on-one, as we know. They're talking to a room full of people. We have people, and I always put it that from Gaylene in New Zealand to Pearline, it's two of our regular ladies in Hawaii. They're about the opposite we've got on time zones. They're scamming around the world, so they're working shifts and they're working, in a group. Now the control is there all the time because there's always somebody there to jump in and give that control. So, the victim's not left for 3 days. Yeah. The victim is being hammered on all the time. And it's
the only time they're left for 3 days is when you've done something to displease them and they use the silence as a punishment.
So when they come back again after the 3 days and ping, that text message comes in, the victim is absolutely thrilled. Oh, he's back, he's texting me. And there's the dopamine hit.
Yeah. And again, you'll see it in the book, but I was in an abusive relationship for some time. And when I was talking to victims of romance fraud about what they'd experienced, I was thinking, hang on a minute, that sounds really familiar. And they were talking through the stages and I thought, my God, it's the same. There's this, they use silence to punish you. There's coercive control. They isolate you from your friends and family, so you've got no one to turn to, and no one can tell you to leave them. There's all these things, and it's so similar. And yet, if you tell somebody that you are a victim of domestic abuse, then people would tend to rally round. You would hope people would rally round. If you say that you are a victim of romance fraud,
you're an idiot.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yet they cannot see that one is a mirror image, a modern online text message mirror of the other one, and it's just as real. It's just as real to the person that's going through it. Except you know, you can always, I always say that, you know, with families, you can say, oh, my sister's brought this guy home, he's horrible. But never mind, he might turn out nicer. We'll give him a bit of time. That doesn't happen in a scam. It's never going to turn out.
Yeah.
Because it can't, he doesn't exist. So, you know, the victim's got to be got out. And you know, I do say, oh, Jake Hudson, no, he's not, I don't know why everybody fancies him, but he's a very nice guy.
Who that
oh,
is?
His nickname's Batman, and he's a guy that they use in scams.
Ah, okay. I've probably seen him then.
Yeah, he's absolutely tortured. But I don't know where we're going with it, Becky, because it's just getting bigger. And people will pick up the phone and they'll have a look, and whatever comes on that phone is gospel. They don't tend to question it. If you get a text, they don't. I don't know how to get people to take more care right at the beginning.
I think the problem is, and this is something, it's a phrase that somebody told me a couple of years ago, with fraud, and romance fraud in particular, it's not a problem until it is. So people, they don't know about the dangers, they don't know about how to be educated around it because they've never been involved with it. So those of us who are kind of working within the sector or the industry or whatever, we all kind of think, oh God, you know, how can we get people to do this? How can we, you know, we keep telling people, we do, but we keep telling people that we're engaging with. And it's not those people that keep needing to be told, it's other people. So it's very, very hard because a lot of the time you feel like you're sort of preaching to the converted. But it's other people that we need to reach, and we need to try and get to the point where people aren't ashamed to admit what's happened.
We need to get to the point where a lot of people now will go to a refuge, will come out and say they've been in an abusive relationship, a physically abusive or coercive control or a violent relationship, and they will come out and say it these days. And they are nurtured because of it. And we need to get to that point with online fraud. I want to get to the point where everybody knows about it, basically, so that you get something coming in from Joe Blogs and Facebook, or Kelvin Smith, probably. And Kelvin's great. I love the name Kelvin. Kelvin is the name that Nigerians think is the most popular name in America.
Come across a few Kelvins.
Love Kelvin. We do have a good laugh at Kelvin, all of us. But I want to get to the point where somebody gets, you know, Kelvin Smith comes in, hello, pretty, and they think, oh, it's one of those scammers, and just gets rid of it. So that it is known about before it starts. Because I always say, when the money stops, the scams stop, which is you know, which is something, you know, I say. But when the money stops, all the scammers are stopped.
Do you know, a couple of ladies that I interviewed, the money did stop. They had nothing more to give. And therefore, they were no longer useful as cash cows. So instead, they were used as mules. So, you know, there's one lady in particular who, and this story, this lady is lovely. She's in her 60s. And she'd started an online relationship with somebody who was using someone else's photo, obviously. And something sort of wasn't ringing true. And I think she'd sent him maybe a couple of £100, which for her was quite a lot, but it didn't break the bank. And anyway, she sent him this money, and she started doing a little bit of digging around Facebook, and she came across some evidence where she thought, hang on a minute, you're not who you said you were. And she messaged the scammer and said, I know for a fact you're not who you said you were. Do you want to own up to it? So he did own up to it. And he said, well, okay, I understand that now. I understand you know who I am. I've got intimate photos of you. So here we go. And then she lost a couple of £100 through the romance fraud, a bit of it. And she lost £14,000 through the following sextortion. Now, once her bank account was completely cleared, which it was actually absolutely nothing left, he then started asking her to take packages for him and take them to the post office and send them over to Nigeria. And I think it's 2 years since I interviewed her, and it's still happening. And she won't go to the police because she's terrified that they'll tell her children, which they won't do.
Yeah.
But it's this inbuilt, it's this fear. And I don't know a way to stop it for her in that one individual case. I do not know, because she's got no more money to give, but she can be used in other ways, and that's what this person is doing now.
Well, recently I did a letter for a woman going to court, and her lawyer was struggling to understand how it had all happened. But I talked to her quite a long time ago, and sort of pointed out that she was going through a scam. That was when she got silly, and I did sort of like say to her, I wish she'd come back to me, because what happened was we got her out the scam. That was fine. She knew it was a scammer. She wasn't going to talk to him anymore. But he confessed, and he said, I'm very sorry. I really am very sorry. I'll never do it again because I feel awful. Really feel awful. And she said, I want my money back. Well, yeah, you deserve your money back, but actually I can't just give it to you back in one go. He said, so what, look, I'll tell you what. If you make a bank account and a Bitcoin account, I will get money put into the bank account. You take it out and put it into the Bitcoin account and keep 20% until you've got your money back. And if you want to keep going after that, well, you can, because I've gone straight now, and I'm doing Bitcoin investments. I'm not scamming. I'm doing Bitcoin investments, and so these are people investing with me, so it's legit money. So she went into it, didn't she? And she got arrested for money laundering, because that's exactly what she was doing. In law, it is your account, your crime. It doesn't matter the reason why. It was worse for her because she knew she'd been scammed. She knew the person she was doing it for. And I had to try and write a letter, say, look, I waffled. But she thought she did say to me, look, I've done something silly, haven't I? I says, oh, that's an understatement, really. But she just did it, you know.
I think there gets to be a point where you're probably so desperate to recoup your losses that you do sort of think, well, I might as well give this a go because I might get them back. And then before you know it, you're back within that rhythm that's become kind of a second home to you.
And of course, they believed the scam. So the scammer knows that there are people who believe stories when they're brought to them. So they've got, that's the first advantage. Passed all the tests, being a scam victim. So she passed them again, because basically trusting and nice people get to be scam victims, because they would never do that to anybody else. So why would anybody do something that heinous to them? And so so I don't think she'll do very well in court. I don't think she's got a leg to stand on, to be honest. But you know, I hope we can say that she was being more foolish than criminal.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's whether they can say that there's any diminished responsibility or anything because of, you know, being under control. I'm not quite sure how that works, but you'd like to think that there would be.
I mean, he was quite pleased he'd gone straight. Oh well, he's doing investments now. That's legitimate. That's really good. And she was helping him go straight. So I sort of talked to her, and I'm thinking, oh no, you know, what have you done? I didn't tell her that, but I could see how it happened.
Yeah.
And that's the worst part of it, because they're nice people, these scam victims.
Yeah. This is it. And this is what I've said in every talk I've given, every article I've written, is that you don't get horrible scam victims. The reason that they have become the victim of a scam is because they wanted to be kind. They wanted to help somebody with what they needed. and it makes it all the more heartbreaking. You probably wouldn't matter if, you know, I wouldn't mind if some of the people I know got scammed, because I'd think, oh, do you know what? You are the most vile person in the world. Fine. But it's not. It's nice people. It's kind people.
It is. And I had a few years ago, I had a really bizarre experience. There was a man from Ghana contacted me, and he wanted me to contact a doctor in Chicago. And I said, oh, I thought weird, you know, I'll go with it. So I said, why, can we video chat? Well, no, but we can voice call. I don't go on a video with a scam. And he said he was really, really worried because this doctor in Chicago was sending tens of thousands of dollars all the time. But they'd been down to the temple and put the juju on it. Mm. And so he believed very desperately that this black magic was making this doctor in Chicago pay.
Yeah.
So he's me contacting a doctor in Chicago saying they've got the voodoo on you. I didn't say it like that. I actually could point out who the man they were using and do it in a more, sort of scientific way, if you like. But it was a bizarre intervention from this Ghana man who thought she was sending too much money because of the juju. But that's the sort of people that we're dealing with on the other side.
Have you ever seen the film Sakawa? That's a documentary.
I haven't. I've heard a lot about it. It's the Ghana scammer one, isn't it?
Yeah, and I interviewed the director of it. It's this young Ghanaian guy called Ben Asamoah. And for anybody watching who doesn't know, he's a young Ghanaian guy, and he grew up in Europe, and he had heard that some of his friends from childhood back in Ghana were involved in this practice. Anyway, so he went back over and he did a documentary about them, and it was really, really fascinating. It's a very it's not one-sided at all. It's a very sort of flat documentary in terms of there's no bias either way.
Yeah.
But it's very, very interesting, this kind of mix of voodoo and technology. And I tell you one thing that's very interesting as well. They had young Ghanaian men pretending to be women on the phone, talking in a high voice on the phone, having phone sex with American men.
Yes.
And it's such an odd thing, because for a country which in, a large respect is quite homophobic, to have these young men pretending to be women, arousing these men, it's a fascinating documentary, but it's a really hard watch, really, really hard watch in places.
There was a New York Times reporter, and he went over to Nigeria, and he interviewed a lot of scammers, and they scammed him. I mean, really speaking, what they were saying, oh, we don't like to do it, because we fall in love with our victims, and it's really hard, but we have to do it. And I thought, you have no feelings whatsoever towards your victims. And the Times reporter was saying, oh yeah, well, you must, it must be difficult for you. But they don't. They invent Keanu Reeves. They invent the general. They invent the military guy. And they become that person. And anything it takes to get the money, anything it takes at all. There's Diana. Becky, I had scammers hide behind good. Well, Becky, let's face it, they have to.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I had one this morning who did me a voice call. I always do voice calls. And he switched it on to camera as they did. Oh, Becky. I said to him, I really understand now why you use a better looking man, because you're so fugly. And I clicked him off. But they've got no conscience whatsoever.
One thing that this filmmaker said, and I have to say, I felt uncomfortable with it, because I don't know whether it's true or not. He said that these young lads, they spend so long pretending to be in love with somebody from a fake, behind a fake veneer, that they no longer know what it means to be loved or to feel love. And I don't know whether that's true. I don't know whether that might be a little bit of a romanticized version of these people, in that, you know, they're so hard done by. I actually think they might just all be complete bastards.
I do. Greedy bastards as well with it, you know. There was a really good Australian thing, you know, and the Australian guy had gone to New Zealand, because the Australian reporters are good at this. They'd gone to New Zealand, and a woman had arranged to lure him to a place, to her scammer to a place where she'd arranged for the cash to be sent. So greedy boy, you know, there was there. Police were there, the reporter was there, and everything. Now then, so they seized his phone, and on the top of the phone, the top name was her, was the woman who'd set it up. And they showed her a picture and says, would you recognise her? Oh, no. He had 83 live ongoing scams. 83. He was scamming at that time, collecting money from most of them. And
yeah,
they just don't know who it is. You are just the copy and paste, the next load of
I have to say, a lot of the ones that I speak to, they'll ask me a question, and then 6 hours later, it's exactly the same question.
Yes, I know.
And of course, I'd love to say, oh, that's, you know, you're off for your next shift, are you? But of course, I don't want them to know that I'm aware of it, because the other thing is, I don't want to teach them anything about what not to do, because I don't want to make them better scammers. But when I say to people, you know, you're not just speaking to one person, there's often sort of some misunderstanding around that. But when they think about it, they think, oh, actually, well, I can always get hold of them. You know, if I wanted to get hold of my other half 24 hours a day, I wouldn't be able to. I mean, you know, as much as he would answer the phone to me, he's going to be in the loo, or he's going to be asleep, or he's going to be in a meeting. He could be doing anything. But yeah, these guys are sort of at the beck and call of their.
No matter where they are in the world, they can send you some romance just before you go to bed and just when you wake up again.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. And I hope you slept well, and please sleep well tonight,
we will
darling.
Meet. Yeah, we will meet in your dreams. Yeah. This week, spooky. That's a bit more like a nightmare to me, but you know, yeah. And they are all. It doesn't matter where they are. They can be in Yemen or Yeovil. It doesn't matter. They can always at that time.
Yeah.
Send that romance. Yeah. As Joe said, yes. Have you eaten?
Have you eaten? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. What have you had? Oh. I'm always amazed at the number of people who are fascinated by my dietary habits. You know, have you eaten? What have you had? What are you having later? Oh God.
I like to say I'm a vegan, and I've had a really good steak and chips tonight. Oh, that's good, honey.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you know from my Twitter page that I often tell them that I've eaten a human heart, or, you know, somebody's foot or something. Oh, really? That sounds nice. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell them I'm Jemima Puddle Duck.
Yeah.
And they just take it.
What's the name of the lady you're talking to, Becky?
I'm Ruth, and that's Becky Holmes.
Oh,
sorry. Somebody you know.
Yes. Could be. I've seen a few people that follow me on Instagram pop up. Yes. So this is strange. It's the other way around. Yeah. So the person I'm speaking to, this is Ruth, and she runs a group called Scam Haters United, who help victims of romance fraud, and also people whose identities have been stolen. So basically, we're just having a chat about how awful the whole thing is.
Yeah, and really how awful people they are. I mean, they're not really people, are they, at all? They just, but it's too easy. And you know, the guy from the EFCC came out and said, in their student population, 7 out of 10 are scamming. Is a huge amount, and we know it. We know it's true. But you know, and he was really castigated. He was really slagged off. Oh, you can't say that. You're running down our. Well, I'm sorry. Don't do it if you don't want to be talked about. But yeah, I just, you know, I mean, the bits I've seen, obviously I haven't read the book yet because they haven't got it to me. But yeah, I was so chuffed when I saw it, like, with the cover.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the cover. It's sort of they sent me the cover through, so again, anyone that hasn't seen it, it's
so it's just one of our guys, Jesse Phillips. He's got some scammers on his page. We'll go and have a look.
So the book cover is a picture of Keanu Reeves' face as a mask. Now, when they first sent it to me, it was very dull, muted colours, and I thought, there's something not quite right about it. It was quite creepy, but it also wasn't sort of bright and lively and how I wanted it to be read. Yeah. So now it's bright yellow and bright pink, and what I hope is there's, sort of going full circle. There are the vast majority of the population still say that wouldn't be me. I wouldn't do that. I can't believe people are so stupid, etc., etc. And I almost hope that people buy the book thinking, let's have a laugh at these people, because by the end of it, they might have changed their minds and they might understand it a bit better. And if you never become victim of a crime, good for you. But can we just stop laughing at the people who are? That would be a good start. Look,
Joe's got a second book. Will Becky write a second book on scammers? When it becomes a bestseller, because it's getting there.
I'm thinking about writing a second book. I'm not. It could well be about something else that happens online. Not entirely sure yet. But the thing is, when I was researching and when I was cutting the words down, there's enough for 20 books.
Yes. It is. You've got to edit so much out.
I was talking to somebody from City of London Police today. I had a meeting with him, one of the commanders of the economic crime. Oh God, so there were so many initialisms in the police. And I said, there is so much going on. It's not just let's put out an advert saying, don't be so silly. There is so much. There's the psychology behind fraud. There's, how they get you, how they reel you in, and how they keep you. And then why is it that people aren't reporting it? And also, what is it that the police should be doing better so that they can deal with victims better? This drove me mad. So they will signpost you to various different organisations, Age UK, Victim Support, Crime Stoppers, etc. All really good in their own right, but of course none of them have dedicated romance fraud support. And one lady had been signposted to go to Mind, and I said, did they feel that you were in need? Did you feel that they feel that you were a danger to yourself? And she said, no. The police officer said to her, well, if you were in your right mind, you wouldn't send money to a stranger.
Yeah.
So maybe. Yeah, maybe we need some training courses for them. But Becky, I think so many people are just fobbed off. Yeah.
Now, it's fine. I don't care what they think about it. I don't really care what they think about it at all. It is a crime. The very least they should be doing is take a report and give a crime reference number. That means you've been heard. That means it's been recorded. There's Sophie, Melissa, but she's Sophie really. Said we hear that all the time from victims, and some people don't go, but they should be heard. It should be recorded, because all these, you've said it just today. The amounts that they say that have been stolen are minuscule compared to what has actually been stolen. It's just what they've heard.
Yeah.
So, at the very least, it should be a crime reference number, and it should be an acknowledgement that you've had a crime committed against you, and that doesn't happen.
But I mean, I'm sure you've spoken a million times about action fraud, but you report something to action fraud, to be honest, you might as well just be putting your head in the toilet and speaking, because nothing gets done.
Oh, it does. I reported for a Polish woman who lived in London, and she'd sent £247,000 to a man who lived in Billingham, just down the road. I had his name and address, I had his bank account number, the Barclays branch, and I had the exact bank account that he used. I had his name, I had his address. I know the address. I know the area he lives in. I sent all this for this woman to Action Fraud. I said, do it yourself, but I'll send a backup one for you. Took about 3 weeks, and I got a reply back saying there wasn't enough information to start an investigation.
Yeah.
I could have gone and clapped the handcuffs on him myself if they'd really wanted me to.
I know.
No.
I mean, Action Fraud, they're having a big overhaul this year, and apparently Action Fraud is being scrapped, and there's a whole new system coming in. It needs to be a whole new bloody system. Yeah. It needs to be, you know. But I've seen those letters that come out, so it will have been one of the ones that that your lady had, where it says, you know, we do not feel there is adequate blah de blah, and the ones that I've seen, some of the language that's within it's the most awful kind of mail merge. They stick your name at the top of one that goes to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, the NAIB, something, NFIB has investigated this. And I've shown it to people who've gone, well, what does that mean? And if that's what's coming out, and, you know, again, on the Action Fraud website, you have to search for romance fraud. And I had a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
And
every other type.
Yeah, but you have to search for romance fraud. And their press team, the lady who was on the call said, oh, well, actually, if you go into the news section, you'll find stuff on romance fraud. And I said, who goes into the news section? The news section is for journalists. Yeah. It's not for, let's say that I'm defrauded and I've also lost who I thought I was going to spend my life with. I'm not going to go looking in the news sections. I want to go onto a fraud website. I want to click romance fraud and I want the information. But it's hidden away, like the crime. It's hidden away so that you have to go in there and seek it out. And if you're in an emotional state of mind, you won't.
If they're going to bang on, the BBC's always saying things like, oh, everybody meets online today. Everybody meets on a dating site. It's how people meet. Well, I'm sorry, but if they're going to bang on about that, they've got to bang on about the rest and the dangers of that, because they're normalising it. Someone comes to you, they're normalising it. We're going to have to, we've got 2 minutes, Becky, because we can't go over the hour because it doesn't save.
Ah, okay.
Yes, it's Meta's wonderful. But yeah, I'll put the thing out again with the book on. I did put the one out of you signing all the books. Oh, I thought that was hilarious. Sorry.
600 copies.
No. I would like to have seen the first and the last to see what the signature was like at the first. Looked, were you good?
And it was the same. Very proud of that. Very proud of that.
Would be, yeah. I would start it nice and they'd get a squiggle. Well, just where you like at the end. But yeah, so, you know, what is happening with what I'm doing in the background as well. I just want it to get out there. I don't care about people's judgments. I would like people to change their mind and not judge, but we need it out there. And you know, you've got yourself, you're putting yourself about a bit, Becky.
Media whore that I've become.
This is it. It's those hotel rooms, you know. Yeah, but well, you know, they might elevate you a bit when you go and get onto the, you know, the bestsellers list. They'll elevate you, won't they?
I'm not sure it's that type of book.
I don't know. I think it is, because it's like it's. Let me say, I can't say this in the right way. It's, people will think it's light-hearted, and then they'll get into it. And
yeah, so it does actually start off, probably the first third is actually quite light-hearted, and then it starts to go into
And I think you said about you hope people read it and then they get into it and they realise what is behind it. And I think that's what you are going to have with the book. I think people are going to take it as quite a bit of fun.
I hope so. I hope so, and then learn something.